the Domata Peko comments recently, guys, and
throwing gas in the
you know,
Bengals.
yeah, Connor. For those of you who don't know, Domata Peko signed with the Denver Broncos this offseason, and in recent mini camp practices, he was interviewed by the media, and he basically said, I think he was asked the question something to the effect of what's the difference here in Denver than it was in Cincinnati, and Domata Peko said something to the effect of, this is here in Denver, it's about winning championships. In Cincinnati, it was about winning a playoff game. Kind of eye-opening, especially because he was such a well-liked, well-respected team leader type of guy. I know he caught a lot of flack from fans the last couple of years because of his play, but a bit surprising from a guy that was a real team guy. I'm sure he's excited to be in Denver. I'm sure he's kind of playing to the fans and the media there a bit. But, Connor, what do you make of Peko's comments? I mean,
okay, so
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna. Sorry, so you cut off. That's why I started. But Domata Peko, man, because that's the thing is like I'm sure it was just kind of they asked him a question, he wanted to give him a good answer, and so he kind of set them up with the whole fan friendly Broncos go team type of thing. They won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, so it makes sense, right? Like in Denver, we're talking about Super Bowls. I'm excited to join my new team. Definitely wasn't taking. I don't think he was actually taking pot shots at the Bengals, but like at Cincy Jungle, we're gonna talk about anything that has the word Bengals in it, even if sometimes we accidentally, mix in a story about a tiger, in Mongolia getting attacked by a rhinoceros. Like sometimes anytime we see the word Bengal, we're gonna pounce on that news. So, but Domata Peko, I mean, and that's the thing is he kind of set himself up there because you have to know at this point in your career that Bengal fans are just gonna try to put you in a body bag anytime you say anything. And I mean, yeah. So when he says, in Denver we're talking about championships and Cincinnati was all about a playoff game. Well, Domata, like you think about it, and honestly, the guy was really, really nice. So it's hard to like not be nice to him. But I mean, let's talk Domata because your nose tackle, right? Your job is to stop opposing running backs from tearing apart the Bengals. And never really spoke up for, didn't really seem like he ever spoke up that much for Andy Dalton. Never that he was, criticizing Dalton, but Dalton for the first 5 games, well, I guess 4 that he played, got a lot of flack for his performances, and a lot of it understandably so. But I think that him and even almost Marvin Lewis to an extent were kind of scapegoats because you look at every single playoff game from 2011 to 2015. All right, let's look at these numbers because I have them all pulled up, right? Okay, Bengals-Texans, 2011. Arian Foster, 24 carries, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Where were you then, Domata? Okay, next game, 2012. Again, Bengals versus Texans. Arian Foster, 32 carries, 140 yards, 1 touchdown. Where were you there, Domata? All right, next game, Bengals-Chargers, the game the Bengals really should have won out of all those playoff games. But again, all right, Chargers. Ryan Matthews is hurt most of the season, only takes 13 carries, gets 52 yards. His backup, Danny Woodhead, 15 carries, 54 yards, 1 touchdown. The third stringer, Ronnie Brown, who's like 8 carries, 77 yards, 1 touchdown. Where were you then, Domata? 3 running backs for 50-plus yards rushing in 1 game. All right, let's go to the next game. Indianapolis Colts, 2014. You've got, I don't even know. I think their starting running back, I don't know who it was, but they were hurt. You've got Dan Herron, former Bengal, cast out of Cincinnati. 12 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Backup, Zerlon Tipton. No idea who that guy is. 11 carries, 40 yards. So where were you then, Domata? Last game, Pittsburgh Steelers. A.J. McCarron's the starting quarterback. Bengals should have won this game if not for a lot of things going wrong. So maybe they shouldn't have won this game. But that being said, Le'Veon Bell's out of the game. D'Angelo Williams was, I believe, out of the game as well. You've got Jordan Todman, 11 carries, 65 yards. No idea who you are. Fitzgerald Toussaint, 17 carries, 58 yards. No idea who you are. Martavis Bryant, wide receiver, 1 carry, 44 yards. So how many backup running backs played the Bengals in the playoffs over the past few years? And despite that, opponents seem to be even better at running against the Bengals in the playoffs than they were in the regular season. So Domata, you were in every single playoff game, but you had a chance to make an impact. can't really throw your former team under the bus like that if you're going to kind of just let every single running back run straight past you. And then, of course, you have the notorious play where he runs onto the field in a cloak against the Steelers, draws a 15-yard penalty, and then people are going to talk. Anthony, I know you and me were both at that Cardinals game in 2015 where he, I don't even know what he did, but that weird penalty, I don't even remember what that was. And I still don't even think that I knew what it was at the moment. But that was a penalty that kind of cost them the game there, too, as well. So, Domata, where were you, dude? Do you have...
I think in Arizona it was the deal where he was emulating the snap.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah, saying hut hut while he was on the line or something. But I don't, like you said, there are a couple of things there that, you know, he's a leader and that you just can't do that stuff. I'm not going to say too much, and then I'll kick it over to you, Scott, because I have a post coming up on Cincy Jungle about this, just kind of talking about what he said. And, you know, he's kind of right in one respect, but he's also out of line in another. I mean, really, for me, I look at it and I say, I mean, he's really not inaccurate in saying that. I mean, this, and however you want to look at it, whether it's, hey, we just need to win that one playoff game and then we'll win a bunch more. Maybe that was the attitude. Or if it's, hey, you know, we're pretty good. We haven't won a game for a while. Let's try and win this one playoff game. You have to figure some of those, win those one playoff games. Andy Dalton was hurt in one of them. They were completely banged up against the Colts in 2014. So it might just be like, hey, let's focus on this one game. Okay. I wouldn't have had a problem with Peko coming out and making this kind of comment if he kind of just said what he said at the end of it, which is, well, here, meaning in Denver, we focus on championships, and that's what I'm here to do. If he just kind of said something like that, fine. But I don't think he needed to just do the whole prefacing of the in Cincinnati. And this is a guy who was paid tens of millions of dollars to play for the Bengals and was a great guy in the locker room, great guy in the community. And this one kind of shocked me. I'm not going to lie to you. I was shocked to hear this from this guy because even though he wasn't the most consistent on-field performer, he was a great guy by all accounts. And I'm just, this kind of surprises me, especially to a team that was more than fair to him in terms of money and contracts and tenure and everything. I was just a little surprised by the comment. Your thoughts on it, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what both you guys are saying. It just seems very unnecessary. And I mean, you kind of get where he's coming from. You know, a team that has not been in the Super Bowl in many years or won a playoff game in many years kind of reminds me of, you know, someone like I don't know, the Wright State Raiders or some school like that where you're just trying to get in the NCAA tournament. And your goal at the beginning of the season is we just want to get in and see what happens. You know, you go somewhere like UK, you know, they're not thinking, man, I just hope we can get into that NCAA tournament. They're basically thinking, we're in. We're going to be a top few seed, you know, barring something crazy. We hope to do some damage in there, possibly win the thing. It doesn't mean that Wright State doesn't, you know, want to win 8 games and that they're just content getting there. But that's kind of how, you know, their perception is going to be because that's something they don't do very often. The Bengals, yeah, haven't won that playoff game. So that's obviously, like you said, that's the first thing you want to do. You know, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And I think that may have happened in those first few, like the Chargers game or the Houston games where they were clearly the better team and for whatever reason just looked horrible on the field and got outplayed. So I don't know if they were just getting ahead of themselves and the coach is like, hey, you know, we just need to focus on this game right here, right now. And yeah, it seemed like a strange thing for him. I don't know if he was struggling with some eutrophilia, trying to get that working or what it was, but anyway, that is what it is.
I don't see Denver as a team that's going to be competing for a championship this year, dude. Like, honestly, I think Cincinnati, and maybe, call me a homer or whatever, but, like, the AFC West has 3 teams, I think, that, like, the Broncos finished 3rd last year in the AFC West. The Chargers have been the most snake-bitten team in the league for the past however long. I mean, they they probably had like 5 or 6 wins. Granted, they lost to the Browns, so they had their struggles last year, but they're missing their 2 best players for almost the entire season in Keenan Allen and Jason Verrett. Last year, Casey Hayward was the best cornerback in the entire league, and he's not even the best player on the Chargers, or the best cornerback. You look at Denver right now on paper; they have a pretty have a few stars, Von Miller, the wide receivers, but they don't have a great offensive line. They don't have much depth at receiver behind their top 2 guys. They don't. I don't even know if I can name a tight end on the roster. Maybe Virgil Green's still there. Their D line, I guess, is who's on their D line. Derek Wolfe is good, but Domata Peko is not, and I don't know if it was Jared Crick or whatever who was the third guy. I don't know about that. Von Miller's good, but they watched Danny Trevathan headed for the Bears, and Sylvester Williams was gone from nose tackle. Malik Jackson's gone from defensive tackle. They don't have this, and they just don't have this elite. They don't have the defense that they did. The defense that carried Peyton Manning to a Super Bowl in 2015 or 2014, and now their offense is.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they have a couple of guys. Jamal Charles. Gosh, I love Jamal Charles. I hope he doesn't do well though, because even though he's probably my favorite running back in the league that's not on the Bengals, he gets hurt all the time. So I don't know. We'll see about that. They have I guess they have some guys on paper, but Denver is going to field either Paxton Lynch or Trevor Siemian at quarterback this year. What about that is exciting? The Bengals have a better receiving group. They have better running backs, even with the Broncos having Jamal Charles. At least at this point, until Jamal Charles proves he can get over his injury. The Bengals, you could argue, have the better defense too. So, interesting move by Domata to say that. I mean, I get where he's coming from, and honestly, it's kind of almost on us, the fans that continually talk about the playoffs. I get where he's coming from with people won't stop talking about the playoffs in Cincinnati. They have to win a playoff game. It's kind of on them. They're currently, in terms of however many years it's been since a playoff win, but also how many playoff games they've lost in a row. They're both records. The number of losses in a row is tie for most consecutive losses in playoff history, and obviously they have the longest active drought of any football team without a playoff win. So I get where that's coming from. But I wouldn't say, at the very least, I would say that it's not like Denver is that much better of it. They're probably even, I would say, if you're talking about it from a maybe worst case scenario.
Yeah, and I think part of where it comes from, the Denver Broncos have tied for the NFL lead and being in Super Bowl appearances with 8. They have 3 rings to their name, and as recent as a couple of years ago with Peyton Manning after the 2015 season, the Bengals, making this even more interesting, the Bengals play the Broncos on Sunday, November 19th in Denver, after the Bengals just brought in Joe Mixon and have Giovanni Bernard, have Jeremy Hill, and they're going to be running at them. So it's going to
Bengals going to rush for 200 yards, and it's going to be a 3-point game. The Bengals going to rush for 200 plus yards.
Early bold prediction. I love it.